science, while male-dominated fields like physics are labeled hard sciences. This means that women's increased participation, instead of reducing gender stereotyping, it resulted in devaluation of more heavily female fields. For society to benefit fully from the broad spectrum of scientific disciplines, we must address stereotypes more directly and go beyond the numbers.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me to On the Move. My name is Magdalena Gomez, and I am the current Poet Laureate of Springfield, Massachusetts. I'm a writer, I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I stay on the move in circular ways. And I heard the term milestones, and I realized, that doesn't work for me. It might work for some, you get from A to B, but I don't get from A to B. I get to C to D to F to Z, back to A, back to B, back to D. And circles for me represent non-hierarchical engagement with people, with the natural world, with the objects that surround me, with the arts that I see and experience, all the disciplines, all the different types of books that I get to read, and everything I learn from different people from around the world who have so much to offer my spirit. And I remain small if I stay only within what I understand and know. And it's hard to put me in a box, and I know that. And there's a price I pay for that. And I've been exiled, but I embrace that exile because I am exiled into the essence of my being. I am exiled into being who I truly am. And that's something no one can take away from me because that is my liberation. And that's how I keep it moving. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time together. Celebrate each other. And remember, reciprocity, not transaction.
And so to the young women of today, you have so many more doors that have opened up for you since my era. We women really struggled in my era to be recognized for anything. Today, there are so many opportunities out there for young women that they should seize every opportunity that comes their way. And again, there's nothing to stop you. There's nothing that you can't do. When you look at Kamala Harris, when you look at some of the other women in journalism who have made inroads, you turn on the TV, on CNN, MSNBC, look at all the women of color and women, period, who have made it so far in the world. They've struggled. They're still struggling. We still have many, many challenges ahead of us, but we're meeting those challenges.
Yes, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and apologize for the syncing of that, but we will put it in our program booklet so that you will enjoy it without the hesitation. And I just want to say welcome to everyone. This event is always one where it is a blessing that we all come together to hear our voices. And this year we truly are. So a special thanks to not only Bay Path University, all of the community collaborators and so forth. I want you to also take a look at your program booklet, which has a lot of information in there about the speakers and so forth. And I just want to call out that this time it's for us to lead, to inspire, to change, and to grow. There are 3 sessions. You're in the opening session. At 11:30, we'll have the career session, 12:30, a session on DEI, and particularly at 5:30, yes, come back, you have a big break to enjoy our young women who will share their voices. So let's support them. And I also want to call out the fact that Hatch Library has put together a great resource for us, a database and a library guide that will share a lot of the published works around the topics we will cover. So you will be able to check that out. And the final piece, the awards. We have awards that will be given to some of the people who did apply for the special award and scholarship. And we will also give an award to Dionne Warwick for her wonderful leadership. And it's not about the names, everyone. It's not about the names. It's about the work being done. And, you know, she has certainly contributed greatly to our world on a number of fronts. And I just want to call that out. So again, welcome, welcome, enjoy the program. And now, can we just put 125, just put 125 in the chat, and let that be our open for President Doran, who will welcome us to BayPath 125th. So greetings, President Doran.
Greetings. Good morning, Professor Fondon, and good morning to everyone that's here. As you said, more than 125 people in the room thinking about how to inspire change, thinking about how to lead change, thinking about how to build community, about all these really vital issues to our community. If we're going to move forward together, it's really important that we have the opportunity to think about these issues together, to collaborate and to craft solutions. So on behalf of the 500 employees, the 16,000 alums, welcome to this event. So on the screen with me, I can see so many of our students, faculty, staff. It is just so much energy right here in this room. And I want to thank you for joining us. It is a tremendous opportunity to network and just think about the pressing issues of our time. At BayPath, in addition to celebrating the 5th anniversary of On the Move, thank you to Janine Fondon for inspiring this event and bringing us together to continue to celebrate it. Look forward to at least another 5 years of this phenomenal event, and hopefully forever. In addition to that event, this event, BayPath is celebrating our 25th anniversary of the Women's Leadership Conference. It will be held on April 1st. There are still a few tickets available if you're interested. Friends, it is an in-person event. I have not attended a Women's Leadership Conference yet, so I just can't wait, but I can tell you 25,000 people have attended this event over the last 25 years. So when I think about impact of On the Move, over 125 people here today, which means however many thousands over the course of the last 5 years. When I think about the Women's Leadership Conference and the impact that we're all having on our section of the world and beyond, think about 25,000 attendees, multiply that by the impact on their families and communities. So just phenomenal. I want to talk a little bit more about the 125th, if I may. We've got phenomenal keynote speakers as well as program sessions. Tyra Banks, of course, is our keynote speaker. We have author and humorist Christine Cashin, who will be leading off the day. Girls Auto Clinic founder Patrice Banks. Isn't that someone we all want to know? Again, a few days left, so I would encourage you to go to our BayPath website. We really want to highlight this year and every year our commitment to women's leadership, empowering women, empowering our students, empowering each other. And this is one of the ways that we're doing it, is right here together. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your challenges and our opportunities, because I think that is really an important part of this. Is, where are the barriers to success and how are we going to navigate those going forward? So this is our opportunity to create a new agenda, to reimagine possibilities. I am just thrilled that we're all here together. I will be here the whole day. Janine, I'll be back at 5:30 to hear from more of our panelists and our presenters, and just to enjoy and soak up all the interaction. So thank you. I would like for us to see the 125th video. It's very exciting. It's been influenced by so many people. Following that, we will be hearing from lawyer Della Marina Lopez. And I know that you are here, so after this video, I will turn the microphone over to you. Enjoy the day. I know I will. I'm really looking forward to being with you. Della Marina, I know you're here. We chatted earlier, so I'm going to turn the microphone over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Good morning. Thank you for the warm welcome, President Dorian. I am here this morning to not only get to speak to all of you, but to share a little bit about myself. So I'm really excited to do that. My name is Del Marina Lopez. I am an attorney and also a city councilor in the city of Chicopee, the first city councilor of color that there's ever been in Chicopee. And it so happens to be a woman. So we're really happy about that. It's really exciting. And it builds a lot of intersectionalities for me in this role. As a Latina woman, my identity, what I bring to the role, who I am, my culture, my family values, the core values, being able to represent my community. That's one piece of it, but also being a woman. On the council, there's been less than 10 women over the history of the entire council. And that speaks for itself. We are on the move now. Now there are two of us. There are two women on the council at the same time. That has never occurred. There's never been two women seated at the same time on the council. That says something about reimagining what the future will look like for us. And so for me, a big part of this role is representation. Right before this started, we were talking quickly between the speakers, and Speaker Andrea Hickson mentioned, Del Marina at the parade. And for me, those kind of moments, aside from the work that we do, are so important. As I was walking down the parade route, I could hear moms telling their daughters, look, she's a city councilor, particularly mothers of color, telling their young daughters of color, look, she's a city councilor. And to me, to some people, that's a very small line, but to me, it's, look, she's a city councilor, you can be one too. And that for me is so important. Representation, feeling like I can actually advocate for the community that I belong to. Anytime anyone is making decisions for a community that they don't belong to, they're not making the decision that's best for the community because they don't have a pulse. And using my platform to ensure that not only women, but people of color have a pulse at the table is so important to me. But that does come sometimes with a little bit of pressures. Being a young woman who's a trailblazer definitely has a significant amount of pressure. And it reminds me a little bit of, I know we've all watched the movie Encanto, and Luisa, she has that one song about pressure that it just drips, drips, drips. And sometimes it feels like that. But the important thing about that is imposter syndrome exists, but it is a fallacy at the same time. Imposter syndrome lives where you allow it to reside. And when I walk into those chambers and I walk into the courtrooms, I don't allow myself to feel like an imposter. We belong there. Even when women were not in those seats, we belong there. We birthed the men who were in those seats. We influenced the homes of the men who were in those seats. So there is no space where we are an imposter. We belong in every single space. Our voice belongs in every single space. And as a young woman, although there is a lot of pressure, I am young, I'm only 26 years old, but that pressure comes second to the work that needs to be done, to the moves that need to be made, and to the representation that is to be had. So I hope that what you take from this is wherever you're feeling like an imposter, you're not. You're just representing a community that had not been represented before, and you belong there. So get on the move, ladies. So happy to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and good morning to the On the Move community. I am excited about being with you this morning and having this conversation. And I have to say that President Doran's comments about impact resonated with me, because I'm going to be talking about impact this morning and the difference between impact and activities and diversity, equity, and inclusion. 57 years ago, this conference, the one we're at today, a gathering of women and a few men, probably wouldn't have been possible. Today we exist because of the 1965 Civil Rights Act, which created one of the greatest social justice movements in America. It opened the doors of corporate America, government, education to Black and brown people. It was the beginning of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and many phases between. So many years ago, when I started my work, I was facilitating managing differences conversations around race and gender with mostly all white men. If there was a Black person or a white woman in the room, it was the exception, not the norm. And yes, we were talking about race back then, which was a long time ago. I know many of the pioneers in the field continued to talk about race during the eras of Beyond Race and Gender, where we added dimensions of diversity to the conversation, or currently where we're discussing inclusion and belonging, which really looks at emotional intelligence and psychological safety. Yet, as the evolution of diversity continues, I always understood one thing, that until we address racial injustice and solved it, nothing would be resolved. So with George Floyd's murder, we have yet another opportunity to bring equity and equality to our boardrooms, classrooms, neighborhoods, and medical institutions, and our international communities. So let us seize this moment in our history to move diversity, equity, and inclusion forward. You know, and Attorney Lopez talked about what it's like to be 26 years old and in a classroom and making a difference and not inhabit the imposter syndrome. And that is impact. But we also get caught up in organizations in a lot of activities. And what activities do is they drain our energy and they seldom lead to results. So for example, installing chief diversity officers in roles that do not have the agency to make change, the resources, the staff, the tools to perform their jobs, that's an activity. It does not have impact. Education programs that are not attached to strategy or services or products have minimal impact, except the appearance of engagement. Recognizing and celebrating cultural holidays and historical moments is important for reinforcing one's identity and life experience and those moments of well-being, but they don't have lasting impact. Can you remember what your organization did for Black History Month celebration last year? Think about it. Diversity committees without resources or influences are time-consuming, and they seldom have impact. And finally, including diverse voices at the table is critically important, but they ring of symbolism if those voices are not heard or lack influence. They do not have impact. So you're there sitting probably wondering, well, what's Danny talking about in terms of impact? What is impact? Well, it's simple and it's complicated. And we take it from a change management perspective. And in organizations, there are 3 levels of change. The first being that interpersonal or personal, the second, the interpersonal, and the third, the organization. And now we have expanded that to the community in our work today with ESG and community social responsibility. So at the personal level, what we're focusing on are our values, our beliefs, our expectation, our self-identity, often elements that are invisible to others, but define our unique self. It is how we show up in the world and see the world. It is what makes us diverse. At the next level, the interpersonal level, is how we interact with others, how we treat people, respect people, include people, honor other people's ideas, work together with dignity for a common outcome. Some might call this inclusion. At the organizational level, we address our policies, our structure and systems, and the larger community in which we live and work. We refer to this as equity work. All 3 levels of an organization change must be in play, the individual, the team, the system, for success to happen and for us to have impact in an organization. You cannot do one without the other. And recently, we've been spending a lot of time over the last 3 years at the interpersonal level, which is about being in conversation, which is where this work started. That's where I started the work under Dr. Price Cobbs, who was a psychiatrist. So we did a lot of talking about and educating people. But what we began to understand over time, because I'm a trained organization development person, that we weren't working all the systems in an organization. So it's important that you work all the systems in an organization in order to have impact. Now, let me illustrate in closing what the impact might look like. So several years ago, a young woman walked into my office, and it was one of those sunny days, I think in June. And for some reason, HR wasn't around. And she chose to come to the DE&I office, and she wanted to transition at work. She wanted to be her authentic self and really begin to show up as a male in the organization. So she was out in her personal life, living that life fully as a male, and was ready to transition to the next level of self-fulfillment. Well, I was honored and proud that she came to the DE&I office as opposed to the HR office, because I wasn't sure what kind of response she would get. But I found myself in one of those critical growth moments as a leader, because I said to myself, I do not know what I'm doing. I have never supported someone to transition at work. I don't know what that means. I don't know about the emotional support. I didn't even know the resources or structures or system that we had to support someone going through transition at work. And so I said, if you trust me, I will stick with you throughout this process until we have completed it. And I'm sure we have a policy to guide us through this. Well, I quickly learned that in this 85,000 person organization, we didn't have a policy. And we had 2 different groups were working on 2 different policies over 2 years each, and yet they couldn't get a policy through the organization. So the CHRO and I at the time, we fast-tracked a gender-neutral policy in 6 months. We received executive committee's blessing. We produced toolkits for managers and leaders so that they would understand what their role was in the process of an employee transitioning at work. We did the same for an employee who maybe wanted to transition at work, and we guided them through that transition. Soon we were discussing that we installing gender neutral restroom, because in this wonderful 13th floor building that was recently built, we only had 1 single stall restroom in the entire building. And that in itself was a cultural challenge, to say the least. We also began to educate our employees on pronoun preferences so that they would understand the why people were choosing to identify and which pronouns, and the language in the LGBTQ community. Today in that organizations, employees can use their company's health insurance to cover their gender affirming surgery. So this is an example of impact. It started at the individual level with someone walking into my office, stating their need. We went the next level to a team to put together to create the policy, because the policy, I brought these 2 teams together that were working separately. And so we're going to have 1 team, 1 policy for the entire organization. We took it then, the policy, to the executive committee. They gave their blessings and we instituted the policy. So we put action into policy, because policy by itself doesn't mean anything. It just means you have something written on a sheet of paper. But you have to put some action into policy, which we did in this particular case. So I would say to you, for those who are leading diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, or if you're a leader in an organization of any sort, ask yourself, is this organization only want activities? which we call food, fun, and flags? Or are they serious about impact? Or am I serious about making an impact as a leader? And what do I need to do differently to ensure my organization can move forward? If the answer is that they are not serious about making an impact, they're really focused on a lot of activity, then I would say that you have an uphill battle, right? And it will be long, it will be stressful, and it will test your moral fortitude. And only you can decide whether it's worth the fight. So I've remained in the fight for 40 years. And I can say it's been the journey of a lifetime. And I have had impact in so many different ways, in so many different organizations and in communities. And as President Doran was saying, this conference, because there's 125 people in here, will go out and influence maybe another 500, and so on and so on, but in very tangible ways. So this, always think about, what do I take from a situation and how do I take those learnings to create impact and not just activity? So I would encourage you to continue in this conversation, enjoy the day. This is sort of sets the foundation for the DEI conversation later this afternoon. And remember, if you're ever sort of jostling between activity and impact, always choose impact over activity. So thank you, have a good day.
Good morning, everyone. That is going to be a tough act to follow, Danny. Wonderful, wonderful comment.
Thank you.
My name is Janet Casey, and I'm the president and founder of Marketing Doctor. And I wanted to start by thanking BayPath for hosting this forum. And I wanted to thank President Doran and Professor Fondin for having this platform for women of all generations. Marketing Doctor is a media planning and media buying company in Northampton, and we are 96% women. I just did the math, and we have a very supportive multi-generational workforce. This company was founded by me in 2003 because I found the landscape for working parents didn't align with my own values about raising my children. So I founded an individual consultancy so that I could be part of my children's life when I was a new parent. And it has bloomed into a company with about 30 employees. And we are now on the Inc. 5000 list for 3 years running as one of the fastest growing companies in the United States. In this post-pandemic, and I say that with my fingers crossed, in this post-pandemic, post-George Floyd world that we live, it's a new day, and everyone can feel it. It's a new day for everyone who hasn't had a seat at the table or who hasn't had a share of voice. And at Marketing Doctor, in our world, our employees, our clients, we are claiming our space in that new world. We are emboldened. It is a day where there's flexibility for all women, women who have young families, women who have babies, women who are nursing children who are in the workforce. There's a new demand for flexibility, and there's a new demand for respect of the human being who is inside every employee. And at our company, we are embracing this moment in time of deep change in the landscape of employment. And we find that it starts with just respecting the human being who is inside of all of us, who comes to work every day, who shows up on meetings, who has to be in Zoom, in person, running kids around. If we look at any of the metrics from the pandemic, we're going to find that women suffered most during this time, and also need a hand up and getting back on their feet and catching up professionally and being given the same opportunities moving forward. Our company is proud to be a part of this day. We're proud to encourage authenticity in everyone. And we look forward to learning today and bringing more of the ideas and inspiration from today into our workforce, into our employee pool, and into our client base, and in the way that we affect the world. So we're very proud to be here today. We're all ears. We can't wait to share. And thank you so much to BayPath. Oh, and now we're going to hear from Vanessa Pabon Hernandez.
Good morning, everyone. We've heard a lot of inspiring and motivational words this morning, and I'm hoping to add a little bit more to that. I come from Springfield, Massachusetts, born and raised with family from Puerto Rican roots. I work at New England Public Media as their Senior Director of Education and Community Engagement. And I'm here this morning to share a little bit about myself and my career path. It began with my high school graduation gift to myself, becoming a mom to my favorite daughter, who has now made me a Lela, a grandmother. While others thought I made a mistake, she gave me purpose. The path wasn't easy. However, I'm confident that all the challenges I faced are what I celebrate today. In my early 20s, I was a single mom, small business owner, director at a youth center. I took risks. I quit a full-time job with benefits for a part-time to launch the first community-based digital storytelling center inside Herena School, a community space located uniquely in the heart of a predominantly Puerto Rican community where I was raised, our very own island in the North End. That's where I discovered my passion for storytelling. And shortly after began my career partnership at WGBY, now New England Public Media. During my time at the station, I've been able to dream big, develop and design innovative programs, mentor young people, offer paid internships, and become the first Latina executive producer for our award-winning show Presencia, with an amazing, diverse team and talented host. In fact, if you're looking for opportunities with NEPM, visit our career page for job and internships, volunteer at our events, or join one of our community advisory board subcommittees. Follow our Media Lab Instagram to watch youth-produced content, which I'll put some links into the chat. Also, with a new president in place, we will be hosting listening tours throughout the region, which we hope you'll participate in search of new ideas and diversifying our content. And we'll be announcing the grand opening of our newly renovated studios on Hampton Street, downtown Springfield. It's exciting times. And while the pandemic shook things up, I'm grateful. Grateful for being able to travel and having a husband that understood the assignment by planning those spontaneous trips for me to unwind and hit reset. Grateful at a very young age to be taught by my mother, a community organizer, to volunteer and pay it forward. Grateful that I didn't let fear take over, but had the courage to say yes to many opportunities, even if I wasn't sure how it was going to get done. I asked questions and learned that when one person says no, there will always be someone else that will say yes. As we celebrate another day of Women on the Move, I encourage you to take a deep breath, be kind, and take care of yourself. Be the mentor, group leader, supervisor that you didn't have but wished for. Have fun and laugh daily, and know that although your path is unknown, as you gain knowledge and build your networks, embrace the obstacles as opportunities to reimagine your purpose for that moment. Your aspirations may and will change. Be ready for it. In closing, I want to thank you, mujeres, women of all cultures around the world, especially those joining us today, for all of the thousands of ways that you have provided both healing and hope throughout history, especially during this pandemic. I know you may feel burnt out, often overlooked, and think your contributions are unvalued. I've been there. However, someone is always watching, and I was reminded recently that your crown is waiting for you whenever you are ready to wear it. Gracias. I would also like to pass it to Laura Lovett.
Hi, I'm Laura Lovett, and I am going to be talking with you a little bit about the history. So the history of the phrase, on the move. We're excited to have Diana Mara Henry, who was the photograph at the National Women's Conference where this phrase was inaugurated. But I want to share with you a little bit of information about something I've put together with some wonderful, wonderful collaborators on the history of this, this movement. So I want to talk about a book we have coming out on the move, which is on the history of the Black women's politics at the 1977 National Women's Conference. This photograph on the cover, taken by Diana Mara Henry, features the work of Janine Fondon, who actually did an interview with the person featured in that, Dr. Gloria Scott, who is raising the gavel to inaugurate the first National Women's Conference in the United States. In November 1977, 20,000 women gathered to set a plan of action for the entire nation. The National Women's Conference has been depicted by some historians and participants as the culminating moment of the women's movement. Gloria Steinem described it as profoundly transformational as the delegates worked through multiple controversial topics that had previously divided them. Ironically, the National Women's Conference is now widely known as something that's recognized not for its unity, but for its division. But we know that feminism has never spoken with a single voice. Last year, I talked with you, I think, about a book I'd done on Black feminist Dorothy Pitman Hughes, who is literally the person who becomes the image for the women's movement, Gloria Steinem, onto the stage, moving, kind of exercising leadership, but getting erased from our history of understanding the leadership. In putting together this book with Dr. Fondon, but also with the person who will be following me on this, this presentation, Dr. Kelly Giles, and Dr. Rachel Jessica Daniel, we seek to recover a different story of the National Women's Conference, a history that grapples with the incredible diversity of the women in Houston, a history that makes visible the leadership and presence of Black women at the conference, a history that recognizes that the National Women's Conference was actually the original site of the phrase women of color. So the inauguration of that phrase becomes a kind of moment in our history that comes out of this particular event. Most importantly, we seek to uncover a history that makes visible the range of Black women's political leadership and action. And so these are just some pictures from that conference. It becomes known for the division that happens. And in fact, one of the reasons that I include this is I often point out to my students, the person on the far right, Dr. Mary Crisp, is at the same time simultaneously the co-chair of the National Abortion Rights Action League and the Republican National Convention, right? So she's simultaneously in those two leadership positions for those two groups that we imagine to be unconnected. And what happens is that it's really in reaction to this National Women's Conference that you have the setup for a kind of division in our current politics that we experience as longstanding. It isn't, but it came out of a recognition of the push for change. This conference was held in Houston, which was the home district of Congresswoman, pictured here, Barbara Jordan, an African-American leader in the conference and in the country. The popular representations of this conference, Mrs. America and Marjorie Sproul's book, Divided We Stand, really focuses on the division within that comes out of the debates in the conference. But what we think it's important to do is to recover kind of the story of leadership, especially. Just to give you a little bit of historical background, the 1977, the National Women's Conference is held in answer to the call by the UN for International Women's Year. This is a photograph with the image to the right of Betty Ford, who was at the time the First Lady, who hoped to attend the International Women's Year Conference in Mexico City, but was denied the right to go because it was seen as political. The call for this international conversation about women had been inaugurated by a group that included women from the former Soviet Union and from decolonizing places like Vietnam and Congo. In 1975, nevertheless, the United Nations declared the International Women of the Year. The US did send a delegation to the conference, and there was a series of conferences that were held every 5 years in terms of an answer to the call for a decade to address women's issues. This is a list of these conferences here. They included kind of one of the pieces, as you may or may not know, the United States has not ratified the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, which was proposed at one of these conferences because of a kind of anxiety about what that would mean in terms of giving kind of a recognition of a call for international women's protections. I have hope that things are changing. We've just reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act in 2022. We are one of the few nations in the United Nations that has not ratified CEDAW. But as the call to change things as established in the 1995 conference, where women's rights are human rights, suggests we are on the verge of changing many things. So just to circle back in terms of this history, so the United States is called to have a conference to establish kind of the plan for the US in terms of women's rights. And we do it 2 years after that initial conference in Mexico City. We hold it, as I mentioned, in Houston. People on the stage included, here we have 3 first ladies, including 2 Democrats and 1 Republican, all coming together on this particular issue of thinking about women's agenda. And so what we did was, as scholars, we used images that were taken by Diana Mara Henry to tell a different story of the conference. It's Our Movement Now depicts Black women's politics at a critical juncture of the women's movement. And so, in fact, the number of women who were at the conference and who were pushing for change really sort of helps us to recast what we know about Black women's leadership and the women's movement. Let me give you a small example. This is a New York Times article on one of the inaugurating moments of the conference. There was a torch that was run. As I tell my students, this is in the days before running is a common activity undertaken by everyone. If we kind of go back about 50 years, it took a while for that to become something popular. So it was seen as in some ways transgressive in some places for women to be running in the streets. And they were running a torch from Seneca Falls down to Houston. This is a newspaper coverage of that particular event. You'll see that it's kind of given a really kind of marginal representation. It became really the signals point of the starting point of the conference. And this is the picture that was taken by Diana Mara Henry as the conference begins, as the runners who take the last segment of the relay enter Houston. This is another Diana Mara Henry photograph, and it's a picture of the 3 runners who ran that torch. From the left is Sylvia Ortiz, Peggy Kokernot is in the middle, and Michelle Searcy is on the far right. And you'll notice that the t-shirts that they're wearing include the motto for the National Women's Conference, which is On the Move. Let me show you what happens to this image when it gets made into the kind of national narrative that we have on the women's movement. I don't know if you notice this difference, but the person who gets signaled as the standout, the emblem for the conference, is the white runner, where Michelle Searcy and Sylvia Ortiz get eliminated from the narrative. So one of the things that we think it's really important to do is to remember that, in fact, if you go back and you look at the history of leadership, you find a much more complex and important story. One of the things that the conference did was to create a series of planks, including what they called the minority plank. Well, the conference, people people at the conference were angry at that. A group of African-American women had organized to come to the conference with what they called the Black Women's Agenda, which was an agenda that worked across all of the planks in every part of the discussion about what they were going to create for an agenda. And when they come, they show up and they're prepared. And in fact, what happens is that a lot of the women from Native American communities, from Hispanic communities, there were actually representatives of this from some of the territories like Puerto Rico and Guam, and they actually come together and they work on adopting the Black Women's Agenda as the agenda for all of them. And it's at that point that they coined this phrase, women of color, as a way of marking this important connection between these different groups. And in fact, it was Janine Fondon's interview with Gloria Scott that became the only piece of the complementary piece of evidence that we have that this is the inauguration of that phrase. So when people say people of color, they're pointing to the role of Black women at this national conference, but it's something that we forget and erase. And so we have in our collection 18 different biographies of the women of color, and especially the African-American Black women who were at this conference, who were establishing kind of the leadership. Some of them will be people that you know, Barbara Jordan, for example, or Dorothy Height, but some may be people who have been erased from history. And by using the photographs of the conference, we tasked 18 brilliant scholars to undertake detailed research to talk about the narrative of these leaders of the women's movement. So people like Dolores Tucker, Georgia McMurray, Michelle Searcy, who I showed you in that earlier piece. And so, so as we think about On the Move, I guess I want to ask us to remember, right, that in fact, where we are is possible because of people who preceded us, but we have to do the work to find their names and to find their stories, and we have to tell those stories. So with that, I'd like to pass the baton, pass the torch to Kelly Giles.
Good morning. I hope you all can hear me. Thank you so much, Laura and Janine, and for everyone for allowing me to share space with you. I'm not really sure if I can follow the act. You know, you all have definitely set the bar really high, so I will try to come behind Laura and just add my little small 2 cents. First, I want to say thank you to Laura. I heard Dr. Kelly Giles, and it sounds so good. I'm not quite there yet. I'm just entering the dissertating phase. I'm a PhD student at University of Massachusetts Amherst in the sociology department, and I'm so happy. Laura allowed me to come and work with her in 2016. This project started off as, you know, Laura thinking big and needing some help, and me wanting to explore an interest in public history. And so to be here in 2022, I really think speaks volumes to her tenacity and wanting to actually make sure that we kind of reconcile with the history that has not always been accurate. And this morning, you know, 2 things spoke to me in particular. One is City Council Member Lopez spoke about the value and the importance of representation. And Vanessa Padon spoke about the need to be kind to yourself. And so I want to share a quote really quickly from one of my favorite people and mentors, Audre Lorde. And Audre Lorde says, overextending myself is not stretching myself. I had to accept how difficult it is to monitor the difference. Necessary for me as cutting down on sugar. Crucial, physically, psychically. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. And I wanted to share that quote with you because in a moment of cultural appropriation and co-opting and engaging, we often think about what it means to be kind to ourselves. And we think being kind to ourselves is about taking a spa treatment or, taking a retreat to reset. And not that those things are not, but to Danny Monroe's point about activity versus impact, Audre Lorde is talking about impact, not just activities, and the impact that it meant for her to move through her life as a Black woman, as a lesbian woman, as a mother, as a partner, as a librarian, as a scholar, as a poet, of all of these many hats that she wore every day. And to Laura's point, and thinking about the need to kind of recapture this untold history that we see media helped erase other women's contributions to our history, we have to be willing to acknowledge that we cannot be erased moving forward. And we have to be willing to reclaim the history that is ours, that we know is ours. Thank God for Gloria Scott being able to acknowledge that the phrase women of color was actually coined at the conference, because that was one of those issues where we struggled to, say, can we make this claim in the book or not? But having somebody who was there, who lived it in living color, who could actually validate that claim so we could cite it properly, gives us the space to acknowledge that, yes, we are women of color, we are on the move, but this didn't just start today. And while all of those women in 77 and the women who came before and the women who will come after us, recognize that these women were taking care of community. These women were being leaders, but these women also had to come home and figure out what self-care looked like for themselves. And so I say to all of you, in the process of being on the move, please don't forget that self-care is critical. It is not just a luxury. Self-care is not always accessible, which means you got to figure out what self-care looks like for you. But more importantly, don't ever forget that self-care is political. And that while you are on the move, make sure that you are documenting your history, because it may not be a Gloria Scott or a Laura Lovett or a Kelly Giles or a Danny Monroe who can be here in living color to co-sign what you already know is fact, but media, institutions, organizations, and government deny you the space. So to City Council Member Lopez's point, representation is critical, but representation starts with us. So self-care, take care, be on the move. And ladies, all folks who are here celebrating, congratulating, and moving forward with us, document your story. Don't let other folks tell your story. Thank God Laura actually want to tell the truth. I'm happy I picked somebody who wanted to tell a true story. Everybody don't want to tell a true story. So do what you need to do to document your story so that you can tell it and you can tell it right. So I'm gonna sign off. I'm gonna pass the mic to Nicole Young-Martin, but ladies, be on the move, practice self-care, be political, and stand firm in being political, and continue your journey on the move. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Oh my God, so many blessed takeaways from that. And I want to wish you best wishes on dissertating. I love in academia that we can make up our own words. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to cover intersectionality, an analytical framework developed by law professor Kimberly Crenshaw, and how it informs my journey. I like to start off with some quotes from women who inspire me and lead my way. Because I suddenly saw opportunity where I had never been brave enough to look before, and I found that failure wasn't fatal, that otherness held an extraordinary power for clarity and invention. Stacey Abrams, Minority Leader, How to Lead from the Outside and Make Real Change. The artist is the voice of the people, but she is also the people. Alice Walker's In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. We are the ones we've been waiting for. June Jordan's poem for South African women. When I dare to become powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. Audre Lorde's The Cancer Journals. A Black African-American first-generation college graduate from working class family of Detroiters with origins in Mississippi, Texas, and Arkansas, the daughter of parents who have recently become ancestors. A queer, plus size, and exceptionally tall woman who has embraced this identity since her late teens. An educator, a musician, writer, performer, and producer, a philanthropist and nonprofit professional, a doctoral student with 3 degrees already in hand, a wife, a stepmother, someone's friend, an entrepreneur, and a mentor. I exist, sleep, manifest dreams, situate, participate, and circumvent circumstances for all of these identities. All of them intersect in multiple ways, which institutions have created overlapping disadvantages for me and others like me based on these identities. One of my core values is belonging. It is something that I learned from both my mother and father from a very young age, probably from inception, given how long my parents have been activists and community contributors. It has always been a priority for me to make space for others, especially through mentorship and advocacy, carrying the torch that Abrams, Walker, Jordan, and Lorde first lit. I always thank folks like them for chiseling through concrete ceilings, which are specific discriminatory practices that prevent folks of color from even seeing how to make it to the C-suite in many corporate, nonprofit, educational, and creative sectors. I follow in their footsteps by bringing others along when I've made it through. Equity, inclusion, and challenging systems and standards of long-standing exclusion guide my North Star. Living and leading in these ways is more than giving back. It's a calling. It is what my dad told me before he died, saying that he was most proudest of me because of the ways that I show up for myself and for others. For the longest time, the women I mentioned earlier were the first, and in many cases, the only one. If me showing up and being authentically present opens a door for others like me, I am beyond willing to selflessly fulfill this act of love. Thank you all so much for joining us today and for the opportunity to share my story. And congratulations to Bay Path University fellow Wildcats on our 125th anniversary. I am a proud second-year doctoral student in the higher education leadership and organizational studies, and I look forward to graduating from the program next year and becoming an alumna. Cheers. Now I'd like to turn it back over to Professor Janine Fondon.
Yes, thank you so much. And are we enjoying our On the Move experience? If you are, just put enjoy in the chat. I just want to thank all of the wonderful speakers, and more today to come when we look at the careers panel at 11:30 and the DE&I panel at 12:30 and the young women's panel. And I just want to reiterate to you, these voices are the voices of us. These are the collective of the people here and beyond that we're hearing, and I thank you. I want to also say at this point is that we have a wonderful awards that we usually give out from angels in our On the Move community who make these funds available to be given as stipends to individuals, people, and mostly women in the community who are doing wonderful things, and they want to give them a little gift. Do we all agree that a little financial gift helps go a long way sometimes when you are trying to do something? So, and this is born out of, women in the On the Move community who said, look, I want to help someone and I don't want to make it complicated, but I want to make sure that we give. And I want to give credit to not only Phyllis Williams Thompson, Trish, who's with us as well today. I just want to make sure that there are many of you who have been part of this very supportive community and making it happen. But this year was actually Phyllis's daughter, who's in high school, a local high schooler here who wanted to get involved and made sure that the process happened. And it happened. She created a lot of the legwork around the application going out. She saw the promise of the fact that she thought it's so important to see our role models out there and help others. From high school, she is a junior. And I want to say that I am giving a very special award to her, Catherine Thompson, as Phyllis Williams Thompson's daughter in high school. Any college on the line, please listen. She is a rock star and has one more year. And she's not only that, but she is a honor student. And, and again, exceptional, but she saw, and that's the possibility in our On the Move community. So with that, I hope, Phyllis, that you will accept it on behalf of Catherine, who's in school right now, but we will get her award, and we will see wonderful things. And I think we will have now Allison Zazinski, who was an award winner last year, who also will share this year's winners. And I want to call out, and I think Allison may mention her, but one of our last year winners is also Phyllis's daughter. And she is now a student at Smith College. And you will see her video in the program booklet outlining her wonderful achievements in research, honors, first year rock star. And I believe, and Phyllis can attest, we were probably the first group to give her a stipend for her journey to college. So we just want to say that's the power of On the Move. So without further ado, Allison.
Hello and good morning. And yes, congratulations to Catherine Thompson. She is definitely deserving of this award. So I am very excited to announce the awardees of this year's On the Move Inspiration Awards. This is our second year, and the awards have been offered to amazing and talented women throughout our region. Thank you to all who applied. We are grateful to the Inspiration Angels who make these awards financially possible. 5 awardees were chosen. Our first awardee is Chanel Romani Ford, a self-made entrepreneur, caregiver, and working professional. Chanel will use the stipend to advance and train other women of color in the maternal infant health lactation education field, which will help to create equity for BIPOC mothers. Our second awardee is Nicole M. Young Martin, a current Bay Path University doctoral student, entrepreneur, and working professional who will use the stipend to advance her web series called Black Writers Read, highlighting literary traditions of the African diaspora. Our third awardee is Erin Harlow, an undergraduate Bay Path student and working professional, and she will use the stipend to contribute to her pursuit in graduate school, focusing her career in forensic mental health counseling at Westfield State University. Our fourth awardee is Samantha Brantigan, an undergraduate Bay Path student, and she will use the stipend to advance her career as an early childhood educator and further her studies in social work, which she will use to inspire youth in the community. And last but not least, our final awardee is Alexia Hosey, an undergraduate Bay Path student, and she will use the stipend to continue her education at Bay Path. She majors in professional writing and advances diversity belonging to cultural clubs across the campus. Alexia looks forward to starting a film and photography club where women can sharpen their skills. Congratulations to all of these amazing On the Move Inspirational Award winners. Give them some love in the chat. Thank you.
And congratulations to all. And for anyone who wants to be an angel out there, please let me know. And as we see, the angel base grows in terms of there's an organizing base for the angels. So that's what I'm thanking Trish Bonica and Phyllis Williams Thompson and others who have been involved in that base. And these are funds that are given directly to these students and wonderful professionals. And I will also say that with all this inspiration of On the Move, I too am a rising Wildcat that hopefully this year I will graduate with my MFA as well. So we all have to inspire each other. And that will give me the next platform to talk about. We have an inaugural national award that we're going to offer this year, and it's to Dionne Warwick. Now, Dionne Warwick could not be with us today, which she's in the midst of her, she has a residency in Las Vegas and other projects. And I must admit, and she openly says she is over 80 and she's still at this work. And for me, what's very important about her, it's for some of you are too young, you may not know the name Dionne Warwick, but for some of you who may know, a show of hands, does anybody know Dionne Warwick and the name? Thank you. This is all about the fact that we want you to get to know the backstories of people. I mean, the fact that she went to college in Connecticut in 1959, and she's had many ups and downs along in her life. And I just took to task this year writing to different wonderful people out there to say, hey, we want to just acknowledge you for that journey. It's not so much because you won so many Grammys, but it's because we see the hard work that it took, and that at 80, that she is still on the move. And if many of you seen her example, she is definitely forthright in her spirit and approach. So, and again, it's amazing that even to get a response, but we at least were acknowledged, and she was very thankful. She sent a little video. And again, at 80 something, I'm like, thank you. So can we give her a round of applause before we play the video? And we all have to, in telling our story, and as a journalist myself, not only tell our stories, show our stories, be our stories. And people talk about being kind, being, communicative. These are things that are so important. So if we can show the video, and then we'll come back.
Hello, it's Dionne Warwick, and I must say I am overwhelmed with joy to have been chosen to receive the inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award. Most people know me for singing. Yep, I do sing an awful lot. However, I speak. I try to say things that are meaningful and inspirational and will have an effect, a positive effect on people. I want you to continue to please educate. The most important thing that we could ever have in our lives is an education. And it pleases me to know and to know that that's exactly what you are doing. You are very, very special to me as instructors. I have a school, and I'm so proud and pleased that those that are teaching and instructing my babies are doing it with love and affection and knowledge. Your standards are high, which is exactly what they should be. And I know that your students, as well as I, thank you so very, very much for caring the way that you do. And once again, may I say, I cannot thank you enough or appreciate the thought that you thought me worthy to receive this award. Thank you so very, very much. Bye.
And congratulations, a round of applause on tape for Dionne Warwick. And if there are other people that you feel are walking the talk and doing what they need to do, please share with us. And if there are other folks that you know should be part of this collective or voices we should hear, please make sure that we just send them to me and others, because this is a building, a learning, a community. And we want that to be known in everything that we can do. As we are together to learn, to lead, and inspire, we have to continue to build the community. And so any questions before we move into that next space? Any questions or comments? And I know Dina may be managing the chat if there is anything.
We have a lot of congratulations going on right now. So congratulations definitely to Miss Dionne Warwick.
Okay, great. And congratulations to the entire team. And I just want to call out, when a group of women come together on an organizing committee, we can stick to time. Can we not stick to time? I mean, we really, rock that time, and it's great. And I just want to thank, and I hope that we will see you in the DE&I session that's coming up, and also the career session. Janet Casey will be there. Crystal Center Brown will be, welcoming us, and also to make sure that, we hear those messages as well. And that's what this day is all about, and seeing everybody at 5:30. And since we do have some space, as we transition, I want to make sure that we'll see that video that we had earlier that had a little delay, and I think Melissa is going to play it for us again. So if you've seen the video, and I just want to call out in that video one thing, the graduate of Bay Path from 1961. She was the last one we heard from, very active in our community. She worked for Mount Holyoke for probably close to over 20 years. She's still in our community, and very, very active. And another woman who celebrates. There's a very big population of women in our community over 80 who are telling us, hold it down, stay the course, and be the best that you want to be. So that's the message. So as we play it, and I think, Melissa, we're going to play it again. As we play it again, just know that you can transition in and back, and we will start promptly at 11:30. And I'm eternally grateful for all of you who are participating, and let's keep to build. All right.
Before the video plays, if I just may, quickly, can we all give a round of applause to Janine for curating this wonderful, wonderful space? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you to the team, and thank you for Bay Path for presenting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And to be continued with everybody. Okay. Welcome to On the Move, where we will reimagine progress, the hills we climb, the paths we forge, and the future we create. Enjoy the voices and timeline. 1898, Marion Kilner is the first registered Bay Path student. And let's fast forward to 1961, Rosemary Jackson, an early African-American graduate of Bay Path. Now, beyond Bay Path, we have On the Move honoree Dionne Warwick, who attended the Hart School of Music, 1959. Freedom writer Jean Denton Thompson, who was on the front lines in 1961 and today celebrates her 80th birthday. Joyce Frisbee Baines in 1969 made change happen at Swarthmore. In 1977, the first federally sponsored women's conference was held, and photographer Diana Henry covered it. Also in 1977, news icon Gwen Ifill graduates from a high school in Springfield. In 1982, entrepreneur Ophelia Bacon opened her boutique at Copley Place in Boston. In 2017, the On the Move Forum was founded. In 2020, President Leary at Bay Path transferred leadership to President Doran. In 2022, we saw the loss of Janice Tree Center, a wonderful area painter in Springfield, an artist and member of the community. And we also saw Leona Michelle, who's now starring on Broadway in a show that she has written about Nina Simone.
And now let's hear a few other voices from our community.
I'm Dr. Yadilet Rivera Colon on the move to talk about STEM. While women have nearly reached gender parity in fields like biology, they still have a long way to go in fields like computer science, where only about 18% of undergraduate students are women. We need to close the gap in salaries as well, because even in fields where women are well represented, they're still paid less than their male counterparts. If that wasn't enough work for us to do, we also have to deal with gender bias in fields where women are making strides to close the gap. Fields like biology are labeled as soft science, while male-dominated fields like physics are labeled hard sciences. This means that women's increased participation, instead of reducing gender stereotyping, it resulted in devaluation of more heavily female fields. For society to benefit fully from the broad spectrum of scientific disciplines, we must address stereotypes more directly and go beyond the numbers.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me to On the Move. My name is Magdalena Gomez, and I am the current Poet Laureate of Springfield, Massachusetts. I'm a writer, I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I stay on the move in circular ways. And I heard the term milestones, and I realized, that doesn't work for me. It might work for some, you get from A to B, but I don't get from A to B. I get to C to D to F to Z, back to A, back to B, back to D. And circles for me represent non-hierarchical engagement with people, with the natural world, with the objects that surround me, with the arts that I see and experience, all the disciplines, all the different types of books that I get to read, and everything I learn from different people from around the world who have so much to offer my spirit. And I remain small if I stay only within what I understand and know. And it's hard to put me in a box, and I know that. And there's a price I pay for that. And I've been exiled, but I embrace that exile because I am exiled into the essence of my being. I am exiled into being who I truly am. And that's something no one can take away from me because that is my liberation. And that's how I keep it moving. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time together. Celebrate each other. And remember, reciprocity, not transaction.
I love it. Oh my God. And so to the young women of today, you have so many more doors that have opened up for you since my era. We women really struggled in my era to be recognized for anything. Today, there are so many opportunities out there for young women that they should seize every opportunity that comes their way. And again, there's nothing to stop you. There's nothing that you can't do. When you look at Kamala Harris, when you look at some of the other women in journalism who have made inroads, you turn on the TV, on CNN, MSNBC, look at all the women of color and women, period, who have made it so far in the world. They've struggled, they're still struggling, where we still have many, many challenges ahead of us, but we're meeting those challenges.
And thank you so much. At 11:30, kudos, and for those voices on the video. And 11:30, we will begin with our career. So if you need to get a quick cup of coffee or something, and then 11:30, we will begin.